to say a thank you, a huge thank you for tonight to Donna Wolf and Nancy Harahan.
Before we begin, I want to thank Saul Turtletaub and Alan Burns, as well as Nancy Harahan and Sharon, for their invaluable support in putting together this evening. The discussion will be moderated by Jeff Garland.
Yay!
Author, actor, and producer.
So,
she has points.
let's start out by just talking about. Phil's laughing because I don't prepare. I'm on. See, these fine people have. I mean, I write a lot, but I am on a show where it's improvised. There's a 7-page outline, which is probably what you guys do. Do you guys write? Did you write outlines?
You're right. We would write an outline, and or a writer would come in with an outline, and we would approve it, and then they would write the first draft, and come back to us with the first draft, and we would give them notes, and then they'd come back with hopefully the final draft, and then we would do our tricks to it. That was the formula. Did you have the same stuff?
No, they came into us with ideas, most of which didn't work, and we'd feed them an idea. And then
Would that be? So would you feed them an outline just with the specific writer, or would you have all the writers putting it together?
with one or a team sometimes, but always, very seldom did anybody come with an idea that knocked us out. So we would come up with something that knocked us out. We had knocked ourselves out with ideas.
But on my show, we would write a script, and that was it. There was no improvising. You said the words the writers wrote, and it was very, very precise. So,
Which is the way God meant it.
By the way,
if God was a writer, yes, that's.
I always talked to Larry about the way he did Seinfeld and what have you, and he would always say that there was very little rewriting, from Monday to Friday. It was the script, and you make little adjustments. And Phil can go, okay, we're going to make that shorter. I'm going to fix that scene for you, and we're going to cut that down.
Like a tailor.
Yeah, like a tailor. Yes, he would say it like that, and then, by God, that's exactly what would happen during the week. And you said the words, this woman is hysterical. Did you say you're single? What did you say?
No, I said it was unseemly.
What was unseemly?
What was unseemly?
With a tailor.
She made a joke. It's a joke. Very good, Daisy. They like that joke better. Okay, you come up here, I come down. Sit up here. You seem funny. I'll go down here and eat the bread basket.
I'd like to eat the bread basket.
I'm already tired.
You have a table read at the beginning of the week, and then everyone goes.
We do. We gather. We do a table read. We do one rewrite on that, and then we start to shoot it. And but we shoot it one scene at a time, not the whole episode at once, like Raymond was done. And so we'll see it on its feet in the set with the cameraman standing there, sometimes 7 in the morning, and we'll watch it and we'll think that 95% of it works pretty well, and then we'll just start to tweak from there in the moment. We'll maybe say, we have to watch it a few times, and then that's not coming together, that moment isn't working, and we'll just start to if we need to tweak it, we'll tweak it right there on the set, and then on to the next scene. We don't have, it's amazing because I came from multicam where you did 4 or 5 rewrites throughout the course of the week, and we always thought you needed those. And I think as it turns out, I really now look back and go, I don't think we needed those. I think we just needed to let the scene play and to let the actors find it. And maybe a couple tweaks here and there and move on. And I think sometimes, you see a scene once, and or you hear it once at the table read, and it's really funny, and you're like, this is great. Then you see it the next day on its feet when the actors are doing it standing up on the set, and it's a little less funny. Maybe the third day you see it, boy, that's not working at all. And that's because you're bored with it, the actors might be a little bored with it, or they're still looking for things, so they're not doing it the obviously funny way. They're saying, well, maybe there's something funny over here, but it really was their first instinct that probably was funniest. and you end up then rewriting it, thinking it needs to be rewritten, and then it creates a lot of work that is probably unnecessary. So we're finding that 1 or 2 rewrites is plenty.
See, I think that's like sort of, I think when the showrunner has confidence in what they've written or what's there on Monday, usually by Friday it's still pretty gosh darn funny.
And that's actually, I think, one of the biggest jobs of the showrunner is to have that ability to hone in on what worked at the table on Monday. And you do always, by Tuesday, Wednesday, you're totally doubting yourself.
Yes.
Everybody's questioning, the network's questioning, but you have to have the instinct to know that if you just leave it alone or know what you do have to fix and what actually will work in front of an audience, you save yourself a lot of heartbreak. On the pilot of Murphy Brown, I turned in a first draft to the network, and then the Writers strike of 1988 hit. And the network decided to go forward with the pilot, but that meant that there could be absolutely no rewriting. And it was a first draft. So terror of terrors. And I had the most wonderful cast, and they were able to smooth over the rough spots because they do, it's like a play, they make it work. And like you, it taught me a lesson, that you don't always have to rewrite and rewrite and rewrite.
And Curb Your Enthusiasm, we have no rewrites whatsoever. No.
Well, you have no rights.
Larry David writes a 7-page outline that is very dense. It is very dense. Every scene, you know what has to happen in the scene.
Yes.
So it's not like I'm Mr. Make-em-up. I make up my dialogue, but it's easy when Larry David's writing the scenario. And I know, and as long as I play it real, it's going to work. The original concept is usually a whim. Truly, it is. That's what it is. It's just sort of something that pops. I think it pops in. The work comes after the pop in. Was there anything that you guys created where it was work to come up with the idea?
When Jim and I did the Mary Show, we had Mary Tyler Moore and nothing else. We were searching around for something. We came up with this wonderful concept that Mary having done the Van Dyke Show, and what would we do that would be different with her? And we thought, let's have her divorced. This was 1970. We told, she loved the idea, by the way, because she had been divorced. She knew, that it was fodder for comedy or tragedy, but she loved it. We went to CBS with it, and they had a corporate heart attack. They hated the whole idea. Nobody had ever been divorced in 1970 on television. In real life, yes, but not on
By
television.
1970, were people sleeping in the same beds? Yet?
Not yet.
Not
Not
yet.
yet. Okay. That's a good question.
And a woman could not get a credit card in her own name until 1973.
That's in real life, not in.
I'm
not
just
in
saying.
sitcoms,
I
not
had
in
to blurt
sitcoms.
that
I'd like
out.
to go back to those times. And trust me.
Steve Lawrence said Edie lost her credit card, but he didn't complain about it because the guy who stole it was spending less than she did.
So we took this to CBS. They had this heart attack on the West Coast. And now we were to go to East Coast and let them have another heart attack, which they did. And they were ready for us. We went to CBS at Black Rock, it was called, in New York. And inside of Black Rock was this womb-like room. It was black. And it had furry walls. It was really right out of Kafka. And Jim and I were sitting in the 2 spotlights like these, down on us, and we couldn't see anybody else. Honestly, And we brought up this idea, and the guy's name was Mike Dan, who was the head of programming. And he was ready for us, and he said, Stan, whatever his name was, a big guy. He said, he's from research. Tell him what you know, Stan. And he said, television audiences will not accept people from New York, people with mustaches, Jews, and divorce. And we sat there and said, huh? What? Which I guess explains why Jerry Seinfeld wasn't successful, or Tom Selleck, or
I think Gabe Kaplan was all of those things.
yeah. and most of the guys in the room were these things.
Jim was that.
They indicated to us we could go ahead and do this, but we would be scheduled at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And so we decided to quit. And so we just thought about that, and we thought, Grant and Mary have been so great to us. We can't do that. We don't want them anybody to look like we've quit because of them. So we rethought it, and we came up with the concept that we eventually went with. But just goes to show you, the original idea could have been good. I mean, to do a show about divorce would have been good.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't let us.
Saul,
Yes?
that girl was my favorite show when I was growing up, and I wanted to be that girl. And I wondered, did you write that part for Marlo Thomas? Did you?
Marlo created that part.
She created it. Okay.
She wanted to do a show, and there were two writers named Persky and Denoff, Bill Persky and Sam Denoff, and she sat down with them, and they created that girl for her. She knew what she wanted to do, to the extent she wanted to do a show about a woman, a single woman in New York, who could succeed as a single woman. Now, what happened, this is how far she took it. After the 5th year, my partner Bernie and Orenstein and I said to her, Marlo, we can't keep doing this show like this, where you say goodnight to Ted at the door. This is already 1970, and he comes and he says, and it's goodnight. He either comes in and sleeps over, or you get married. So she agreed to the engagement show. So we wrote a show and shot it. The day after the show was shot and shown, she announced she's not going to do the series anymore. She canceled her own series because of my big mouth. Cost us a great job. She wouldn't do it. She didn't want to tell the young women of the world you had to be married to be successful and to enjoy it.
Gleason, see, I didn't know that about you. I knew everything when we met the other day, but I didn't know you wrote for Jackie Gleason. I heard he was tough on writers.
Jackie was, by the time I met him, he was so drunk. I saw Jackie, I worked for him about a year. Every time I met him, I was introduced to him. Jackie, this is Saul, and I don't know why, because I was pal. How are you, pal? Nice to see you, pal.
That's what he said all the time.
All the time. Everybody was pal.
Close to Saul.
And he was, yes, almost the same letters. But he was drunk all week, and the year that I did the show for him, he never came into the studio for rehearsals. He didn't know what the show was, to the extent that he stopped doing original sketches, and he would look at kinescopes from his past show and say, there's a good sketch, I like that one, I'll do that one, pal. And Rod Parker, who was a writer on the show, said he wanted to give credit to Bausch and Lomb.
Was this at Miami Beach?
Yeah. He would come in, Jackie would come in on Friday. The show was taped live Saturday night. He would come in at Friday and be sober and sit in the audience and watch. Barney Martin was his stand-in. Did you guys know Barney?
Yeah, sure.
Barney Martin was Jerry Seinfeld's father.
That's right.
On the Seinfeld show.
And Jackie would sit in the audience and watch Barney do the whole show through, then go home and come back Saturday night, an hour before the show, and do it perfectly.
Oh my God. All right, now, when did Raymond go off the air?
4 or 5 years ago.
Do you remember the year?
I'm going to say 2005.
2005.
Oh, so that's 6 years ago.
6 years
wow,
ago.
where have I been?
In Russia. I think there's always a place for a good reality show. There's plenty of good drama on television. But I've always had the theory that the reason that half hour has faded away until a rebirth, if you will, with Modern Family, which is a magnificent show, is network notes. What I mean by that is, if you have a note for an hour drama, you're not going to ruin a show. But if you're not skilled in comedy and you have a note for comedy, you can ruin everything that your note affects. It's like a domino effect, which, like, if you say, I want the killer a little nicer, in a drama, it's not going to have an effect. But you say one character should be nicer, or one character this or that. How did you guys deal with network notes? Just curious in terms of, especially at the beginning, when they can really ruin your whole festival, let alone, episode 38 or whatever. Go ahead.
Looking at exporting Raymond and what you were dealing with the Russians,
Yes.
I thought, I wish I could have had them rather than CBS.
Oh my God! If and when you see the movie, which you will, that is beyond funny.
Then you get
because they were as dark people, not Russians in general, but the executives that he dealt with looked like in their part-time they killed people. That they worked for the KGB, and on the side, program comedy.
I did. There was a head of comedy there, who he didn't look like a head of comedy.
Looked like Putin.
I did say this. I cut it from the film because I didn't want it to be taken the wrong way, and I'm not out to I did say he looked like someone out of Schindler's List, and not the list part.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh God!
That's funny. Well, the number...
Because that could be taken the wrong way.
After you do a pilot, there's a testing process, which is so, your audience is basically wired up, I don't know if any of you have ever done this, but it's very sci-fi. And
by the way, because I've watched them in action, they approach people generally on Hollywood Boulevard in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater.
Yes.
And if you're someone who's wearing black socks with sandals and shorts and a shirt that's ill-fitting with a T-shirt with some sort of saying on it, they want you in the audience.
They want you.
For this intelligent woman's hard work.
Exactly.
That's who they're going to say, what do you think of this?
Because those people will allow them to put a probe up your butt in order to find out whether something is funny or not.
No, but
that's how they
you
do
tell
it.
them how they do it, really. They don't know how they give you a machine, a knob with a knob on it, and they say if you like something, turn to the right. The harder you turn it to the right, the more you like it. Something you don't like, turn to the left. Turn to the left. So you see people like this, which brings up the question, who the hell watches TV like this?
I do.
Exactly.
Right?
I do.
And then, invariably, there's a setup to a joke, right? The straight line, right? You know what that is. Turn to the left. The punchline comes, turn to the right, which leads to the note, correct me if I'm wrong, could you please cut all the setup lines?
Yes. Right.
What do you do
Just
with that?
the jokes, yeah.
Yes, could we just have the jokes? Someone they don't know comes in the door, turn to the left. Tony Danza walks in, turn to the right. I know, I've seen him before. I like this. So, Tony Danza, just saying jokes, the end.
That would be the highest show. That's right. The guy who's in charge of testing at CBS at the time, his name was Bob Brilliant.
That's right.
Oh
And
my
I
God.
get a memo from Bob Brilliant. And he says, this is how you can make your show better. Get rid of all the references, like Indira Gandhi and Camus and all these various references that were the hallmark of our show, ultimately. Get rid of them because people would actually be required to read a newspaper in order to get the joke. So, you know, in those days, we're going back 1988, you could, if your show was going on there, you could actually reason with the network executives. And they did allow me to do the show that I wanted to do. These days, it's a different ball game. It's really, really hard to reason with them. They, you know, they've got their notes, and you do them or you're out.
By the way, the head of testing, Bob Brilliant, was replaced with, I'm not exaggerating, this man's name, head of testing at CBS,
Yes.
David Poltrack.
Whole track. Whole track. It's funny.
Now, let me just ask you another quick thing here that goes along with this. Let's say you wanted a guest actor on the show. Did you have to run that by the network?
At first, yes.
Oh, at first.
At first, they wanted Ray's a sports writer. I know how we'll get ratings. We'll have sports stars on the show. So you had to make up a reason why Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was coming over, right? Mm-hmm. It was ridiculous. I put them in the teaser of the show, meaning the little part before the opening credits, knowing that if we would ever be lucky enough to get into syndication, you have to cut a little bit for syndication. That goes. Goodbye, Kareem. Goodbye. Yeah.
We did a show for Phyllis Diller in 1968, and we wanted Jimmy Brown, the football player, to be on the show. So the network says, no, he was arrested for throwing a lady out of a window. So we said, Bernie and I said, well, you know, this is America. I went to law school until he's convicted. You can't say the man isn't convicted. He's still, it's a holding situation, and I'm not going to, after we hired him, I'm not going to tell him we don't want to use you because you threw a lady out of a window.
That's hilarious.
So we stood by our guns.
Yep.
Thank God he didn't stand by his. And he came on and he did this